All right, everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be doing a tutorial of sorts on how to use my Sheets for playing NHL. For those of you that were following along last year, I got involved with it later in the season, and I had an incredible amount of success. Ran probably 11 standard deviations ahead of expectation as far as results go, but got me hooked enough such that I'm going to continue my process during this season and hopefully kind of tweak it and refine it throughout the course of the season. Now, as far as true transparency, what I'm probably going to end up doing is I'm probably going to play 20 lineups a day in MME and probably one lineup of kind of that big single entry. And so what I'm going to do is show you how at least to use the sheets for both kind of formats. And just going over what all these kind of line items mean. For those of you that have not, seen this for the other sports, this will be new. For those who've seen it for the other sport, this might be a little bit redundant, but so be it. So you're looking at kind of like my version of what you'll see on the actual True DFS website. As a matter of fact, let me just kind of show you. Yeah, so this is the view you'll get on the website, but it's the same. You can download this to an Excel spreadsheet if you want, or you can toggle back and forth within here. Plenty of ways for you to access the data. So you'll see the column. Obviously, this is the name. This is the team they're on, their position. This is their salary, and we have it both for DraftKings and FanDuel. So this is fantasy points, and what this is a combination of aggregate projections throughout the industry, which are then adjusted based on accuracy. In other words, I've done some back testing on a lot of different models out there, and I give certain models a little more credit for accuracy in certain situations using kind of a formula, that I kind of came up with. And with that, you get what I feel as one of the better median projections around, because it takes everything and puts it all together, and it adjusts for accuracy. I would go with this over anything with respect to median projections. Now, keep in mind, right, that median projection is just a median. It doesn't mean that that's what you need to win the tournament or anything like that. And I will also say that with respect to hockey, I would say is less projectable, not projectable, but the projections have less dispersion than, say, baseball, but probably more dispersion than, say, basketball and football. Baseball is actually an interesting question. I do think hockey is a little more predictive. It's very rare that hockey studs get zeros, right? You'll see them go without goals, but because the way they distribute points in hockey, it's very unlikely they're going to get zeros. So that's the median projection, and that's under fantasy points. Point per dollar is just point per dollar. Projected ownership is similar. That, again, just combines all the different ownership projections I can get my hands on, which have been back tested for accuracy and then adjusted as such. And you get this kind of one column over here. So what you can do with it, we'll get to in a minute, but these other value metrics in columns of F and G. F is PP dollar, which is point per dollar, which is just your classic, salary divided by points. And then Sheets value score is something I've developed that kind of accounts for both the raw points and the value and the points per dollar. In other words, look, if you're a 5 point per dollar player, it doesn't really help you if you're only going to score, rate to score one fantasy point, right? So you do want to have some kind of mix of raw points and point per dollar. So I think Sheets value score is something I've developed which captures that pretty nicely. And by default, the rankings of all of the players, I think in all of the sports, is by Sheets value score. So what you could do with this, again, you can eyeball this stuff to just make hand-built lineups. You can export it to your favorite optimizer. You'll see that there's a tab here for that's already been designed to format the way some of these optimizers want. Like FC is Fantasy Cruncher, Saber Sim is SS, and RGHQ is RG Upload. So if you wanted to download just these single sheets and then upload those to your favorite optimizer to make lineups that way, you can certainly do that. And I do that, all the time. So that's essentially it. I mean, I'll give you an example, by the way, of both. So this is kind of a weird slate. This is just kind of a sample slate. This is like a 2-gamer that's starting off the season. And so if you wanted to just use this to kind of hand build, what I'd like to do is honestly like rate these things by sheets value score, and then see which highly rated guys are from the same teams, right? Because you do want to stack in, there's in hockey, it's a very correlation based sport. So you do want to kind of look for those teams that are in the same, on the same team. Now it's going to be a little easier today because there's only 4 teams. There's only 4 teams playing. As a matter of fact, is this bad that I don't even know what the name of this team is? Who is this? The Seattle. Who is this? I don't even know what this is. That's how little I know. New team, the Seattle Kraken or Kraken. I don't know. Anyway, that's Seattle. So that's what you want to do is so like, for example, both these guys are goalies. They're usually going to default near the top. I see that Pacioretty is the highest rated value score, and he's kind of tied with Kucherov. And then there's kind of a little bit of a drop to these other guys. So what I try to do is make a lineup with other guys from Vegas with Pacioretty. So I would just try to go with Pacioretty and Shea, and it's good because one's a wing and one's a defender. And then what you'd like to do is hopefully get guys from the same line. So the thing is that like this particular slate, after Pacioretty, the next guy from Vegas that is on the line is not till rated number 18th. So this might not actually be the best stack if you were hand building like this, is because you don't get to these guys as quickly. Whereas like Tampa, you got 1, 2, 3 Tampas kind of all rated pretty highly, and they're all together. However, you'll see that all 3 of them are wingers, so it's unlikely they're going to be in the same stack. And that's where you have to do a little bit of fundamental analysis on your own, is figure out who's going to be on the same lines together. And you can go to your favorite optimizer, whatever. I like to go to either Daily Roto or Roto Grinders or whatever, because I honestly don't have it in me to go just track down who's going to be on the lines every single day. I just kind of just take it from other sources. But what you could do is, again, just take one of these and throw it in one of the optimizers, and it'll probably give you the right lines. And that's, I guess, pretty much it, right? The rest is going to be basically a slate specific. But just to give you an example of how to do this with an optimizer, let me find it. Can I find SaberSim pretty easily? Yeah. So let's do SaberSim, and this is actually what I did. Was I uploaded these particular projections from my sheet to here. And then what you do is hit, like, for example, new builds. And depending on what sliders you want to use or whatever it is, then you could just fire it off. And you can be kind of confident that the projections and ownership projections that you used as inputs are sound. Like I said, projections are not the end of the world with respect to, especially with hockey, but at least it starts with, gives you a good baseline from which you can derive good lineups, and from which you could have good inputs to optimize that are going to build you some good lineups. So just for fun, let's just see what this kind of just pops out. And there's a different tutorial, I think, available on how to actually use some of these optimizers, but this is more how to use my sheets to get into the optimizer. So here, like, for example, this will come up with a bunch of lineups here. And this is like basically a huge Tampa stack. But again, what's different about this slate as opposed to others is there's only 2 games. So it's not going to be, you're not going to have to make as many choices, right? All your teams are going to be stacked to some degree. I guess that's about it as far as the tutorial goes. I'll try to put projections up here every day that I'm playing, and hopefully most days that I'm not, just so that you guys have access in case you do decide to make hockey one of your sports. I really think it's a very interesting sport, from the purposes of from the perspective of analysis, right? I think correlation is very important. I think that lineup construction is really important. And I think it's a good mix of having good ownership and projections, and point projections, with the knowledge that you're going to have to look for upside on top of that. So I guess that's it. Hopefully you use the sheets in playing hockey lineups, and good luck this season.